Welcome into the Kings Beat podcast. I'm James Hamby, Kings Inside for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We are, of course, a Blue Wire podcast brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Joining me today, Sean Cunningham. Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm ecstatic. How are you guys?
We're great. We have Brenden Nunes from the King Bulls podcast.
What's that?
What's going on, Brenden?
Hello. I am doing well. Credit to you, Sean. You found the most badass way possible to announce that you're changing jobs. Second
Sean's
time around.
Big time in everybody.
It's true.
I mean, there's they got the TV media transfer portal is open, and that rascal Malik Monk found out about it and had some things to say. But yeah, I will be moving on from Channel 40. I'll be heading over to the sports department with Channel 3, joining the very talented folks over there, Michelle Dapper and Del Rogers, the sports director. So can't wait, man. It's gonna be fun, some fun times on the horizon for sure.
What's the job gonna look like for you?
Anybody who has seen me on any of the previous channels over the past couple years, it'll be exactly the same thing.
Okay. So just busting your ass, running around with a camera.
Yeah. Just being a nuisance to athletes and coaches, and just putting a microphone in their face and asking silly questions. And
asking about Rihanna shirts.
There it is.
That was probably the highlight of the week, to be honest. If I'm being fair, that and the fact that I can see that Brenden made his bed today. So that's
can I give you a new highlight, Sean? I have a podcast candle.
Oh shoot.
Let's see the smell real quick before I show you, because I'm very proud of this. Is sea salt, apparently.
Oh.
But this is a custom thing from a friend of mine who's a listener to the show. This is my podcast candle right here.
Wow.
For the audio side, it literally says on the candle, "This is my podcast candle." That is a good question. I will have to make you one. I will have to get you sent one.
I'm going to continue to burn the warm and welcome, because that couldn't describe me more appropriately.
Sure.
Cold and prickly.
And I think this candle, I mean, here's the problem. I had all these other ones, and they last a long time if you don't burn them all the time. So this one is probably got a half of a cycle left. So I could probably get by for another month and a half on this one.
All right. They last way longer too if you don't force us to have an hour and 45-minute podcast. Just saying.
What do you? You know what? I'm all about the consumer. The consumer was like, "Hey, where's our twice a week episodes?" And I go, "You know what? I'm gonna
drag this out as long as possible."
Yeah, man.
All right, we got lots to talk about. So congrats to Sean. We're super excited for Sean. It's been in the works for a little while, and I'm super glad we can talk about it freely.
Me too.
And I will have to come up with a new way to intro you, like I have for the last, I don't know, what are we, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is.
You'll just say KCRA 3's Sean Cunningham.
But I don't just ever say it like that, Sean.
Well, in comparison to the way you say it to Brenden, our ears will appreciate it.
There it is.
Yeah.
Of course, just to get back to the basics, if you're listening here on the audio side, we'd love it if you gave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you don't mind, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. The Sacramento Kings season is over. The regular season is over. They are now in the play-in tournament. They have a game scheduled for Wednesday. Is it at 7:00? I haven't looked.
7:00 on ESPN.
7:00 ESPN, Sacramento Kings versus the Dallas Mavericks in a battle of the 9 and 10 seeds in the Western Conference. Kings, of course, the 9 seed with a 40-42 record. The Dallas Mavericks just a game behind at 39-43. And this should be entertaining. I don't know. This is kind of the buildup. Where are you guys at with just like the fact that they made the play-in tournament after such a rocky, crazy up and down season?
Not much of an accomplishment, to be honest. I think them and Dallas they're not really postseason caliber teams, to be honest. I would say that everybody above them is, and they're benefiting from this new format. I guess maybe not new at this point, however many years it's been around for, but they get a shot. And they did earn that. They managed to stay above Phoenix and Portland that was trending for a little while there, but more so those teams kind of slowed down. And it's not like the Kings ended their season on fire necessarily. Even though they put together some good games for a couple stretches there, I would say that, I guess they get a little bit of credit for it. But honestly, I mean, they're definitely were one of the worst teams in the whole thing, I would say. And that is obviously how this is going to work when you're towards the bottom of the seating as well. But, I don't know. I don't have a great feeling about, oh my God, they accomplished something by making the play-in necessarily.
All right, so Brenden takes him to the wood chipper. Let's go to Debbie Downer. What do you got for us, Sean Cunningham?
Well, okay, look, I mean, once it became pretty apparent that was the direction that they're going, and it also looked as if they could have fallen out of the play-in scenario, if we're being honest, like a few weeks back. I feel like the rose-colored glasses and the optimism side will say that they've found a way, even though they lost to an Orlando team, and that was probably their worst effort of the year, in my opinion, at least
Washington.
in the current gathering of this group since the trade deadline, and then they lose to Washington, which felt like an equal parts kick to the groin. I just feel like the way they've played over the past 2 weeks or so, those games notwithstanding, I think they've appeared to didn't matter who they were playing. Like they've had a rhythm to them. They've had a sign of life, and there's I don't know if I'd call it playoff basketball, but certainly the intensity has been there. I like the way they've responded to physicality at times where you've seen it. And having been at practice today, as we record this on Monday, talking to Doug Christie, and I think we had Zach Levine and Keegan Murray, like I think everybody is believing in the effort that's been put forth over these past several games. I know I'm not a big believer in momentum, and nothing can kill momentum like having 2 days of practice before you go into a winner go home scenario. But they need to treat this as if this is their playoffs. It's not, but for them, it needs to be that, and it gives them something to fight for, a goal. And I also think fans will get genuinely excited over this. We've seen this in the play-in tournament before, and why not? I mean, you come to this end of this tumultuous season. I think there are certainly several positives that stick out aside from the many maybe negative or darker moments that this season has provided, but I think I feel good about them against Dallas. I feel good about, honestly, the teams that they could come up against in the play-in scenario, even the Warriors and a Memphis team. I like what this play-in tournament gives in terms of, hey, go earn it before you have to go play a Oklahoma City team or whatever. And yeah, I think there isn't much to get excited for. Doesn't mean that I think that this season was a success. It doesn't mean that I think that this has turned their fortunes around, because like I said in the last podcast, James, even if they go out and beat Oklahoma City in a playoff series, they have a lot of things that they have to address in this offseason. And it doesn't really change my mind in terms of what lies ahead for the future. But living in the now, where there's a lot of evaluations and determinations that are going to have to be made on many people within this organization, enjoy this. Go out and earn it. Go out and take care of business, and people's minds can be changed very, very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I'm kind of in Sean's vein here, where it is an opportunity, right? And for how bad they played, and I don't even want to say the second half of the season, because actually they played better in the second half than they did in the first half. But just how awkward and weird and like unconventional this season has been, they still have an opportunity to be better than the team that they were last year, to actually win 2 play-in games and actually represent the Western Conference as a seed in the playoffs. Do I think that's gonna happen? I don't know. Like, I'm kind of, again, with Sean here. Um, Dallas to me is not a very good team. And I think Golden State will probably beat Memphis. And then we'll see Memphis, who's also not a very good team right now and kind of lost in their own way. But Doug Christie keeps saying this one thing that I think I would point out, that the Kings are, like, realistically, they have a nameless, faceless opponent. And their biggest opponent is themselves. And I agree with Doug on that, because
I do
just,
too.
even watching last night's game, man, it just like, get out of your own way half the time. The loss to the Clippers the other night, get out of your own way. Like, what are you doing? And so if the team that shows up that beat the Cleveland Cavaliers and beat the Detroit Pistons a week and a half ago, the Kings should have no problems making it at least to the second play-in game. If the team that shows up that lost to the Clippers and lost to the Denver Nuggets, it's a coin flip. And if the team that shows up that lost to the Orlando Magic, Indiana Pacers, and Washington Wizards, then this team is going home very early, or they're just not getting on a plane and going to a second play-in game, and they'll get their ass kicked by the Dallas Mavericks, because this Jekyll and Hyde routine that this team has pulled all season long, I'm not buying into it. Doesn't sound like Brendan's buying into it, and I know Sean isn't buying into it. But at the same time, they do still have a bunch of talent, and they have an ability to beat teams that surprise you. So I'm kind of here for it. I don't mind an extra. Like, I always hate when people go, "Oh, you got an extra 5 minutes of basketball when it goes to overtime." It's like, yeah, that's not exactly what I wanted tonight. I did not want an extra 5 minutes of basketball. But when I do see an extra game, I'm like, okay, like, I'm here for it. Let's see where this leads. Like, it might only be one game, and it might be 2 games, but then again, it might be those two, and then another 4 or 5 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I'm kind of here for like the journey that we're about to embark with this team, because I do feel like this team, it isn't too late for redemption a little bit, to kind of pull their way out of like a really bad situation this season and turn it into at least a little bit of a positive. But I want to kind of start here. What happens in the next game, the next 2 games, the next 7 games, 9 games? Does it have any bearing for you guys on what should happen this offseason and what will potentially happen this offseason? Or do you think there's already a pretty, strong script written for what we're going to see the second this season officially ends?
I think it definitely matters, but I would say even more so if it's drastic in one way or another. If it's like a close game and it's single elimination basketball, when it comes down to it, anything can happen. That's what makes March Madness so fun. But if you go out there and convincingly, win from the second quarter on, then that says something. If you're able to fully get to OKC and put together a somewhat respectable run, whatever that may mean, I think that they would get destroyed by OKC for what it's worth. Then sure, it changes the feeling a little bit. I think more so I am expecting it to matter rather than I think it necessarily should, would be my perspective on it.
Can you ask that question again, James? I want to make sure that I understand it fully.
Okay. Say that again.
Does the play-in matter? Like, does the results of what happens in these?
Of course, yeah. But does it? Are you talking about? Does it matter in terms of the decisions that have to be made at the end of the season?
No, I mean, do you think that there is a different course that could be taken if the Kings, next week and a half is different than what we've seen the last 3 weeks? Like, are they gonna use this as more time to get to know who this team is and to give it one last shot to kind of figure itself out?
Well, I think in terms of the Kings putting their best foot forward as they're constituted, like I feel like I've seen playoff basketball from them for a greater part of the last 10 games. Let's just put it that way. More times than not. Particularly obviously in the maybe in the last 5, if you want to really put a more of a microscope on it. So I feel like, this is probably about as good as it can get for them. I don't know that there's another level that they can jump to. Do you guys think that there is?
Not really. I agree, but I'd be curious what you mean by you feel like they've been playing playoff basketball. Like, where do you see that?
In the physicality, some of the intensity, their overall preparation, starting games may be the right way for the most part. I feel like, again, you're not going to win every game. You're not going to be perfect. You're not going to score 30 points every quarter or more. There certainly leave a lot to be desired, but the way this team is currently constructed, like I feel like I've seen for the greater part of this 10-game stretch, I feel like I've seen playoff basketball from the Sacramento Kings, at least as much as what they can offer. I don't think it's good enough to be able to take down many teams in the West, but I think that I think it's a good enough sample size to know that this is the type of intensity that they're going down should they look to advance in one round of the play-in tournament, advance out of the play-in tournament, and advance to that opening round matchup. So I think, you know, I think it does matter for sure. To your question, James, it matters because you have a lot of players, even though there's a lot of players on this team that have playoff experience. I mean, shoot, we were joking about Jonas Valanciunas having 7 straight years in the play-in tournament, being the all-time leading scorer and rebounder for them, or at least just in league history for a play-in tournament. But there's a lot of guys on this team that are hungry for the playoffs and the playoff experience. Zach LaVine has played in 4 games, just 4 playoff games in his entire career. This isn't the playoffs, obviously. Play-in tournament is different, but it's going to be treated as such. So, yeah, I do think it matters. I think all the I don't know that any decision will come from this. And more to that point, like I found myself kind of wondering today. I was just spending a lot of time kind of, glancing at Doug Christie and kind of putting myself in his shoes, because if I were to be asked, like, do I think if I'm Doug, do I already know what my future is beyond, like, for example, if it comes crashing down on Wednesday and they lose to the Mavericks, does Doug Christie know that he's the head coach going forward? I truly don't think he does. I don't think he has that clarity right now. And there's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made. I don't know that one game can necessarily change the mind of anybody, but certainly it's possible. And we've seen decisions get changed all the time. I mean, we were talking about, James, like, especially in people we were talking to, boy, a month into the Doug Christie experiment, it was looking like people were ready to just hand him the job right then and there. And I know a lot has happened since then, but you look at it, there were still 3 games over 500, all things considered. I think there's some, again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of good that can come of this stretch that they've had to go into the offseason with. But I don't know that 1 or 2 games will make a difference, but I do think this stuff matters. And I think it matters across the board. It matters to Doug. It matters to somebody like Zach LaVine, who you've hitched your wagon to for the next 2 years or so with just a huge bloated contract. You still have decisions to be made on guys like Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis. And I think a lot of these guys that you're thinking whether or not you can go forward with, you want to see what they look like in a win or go home scenario. Do they rise to the occasion or do they wilt?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, I think the decisions on the offseason, like whether you're retaining Monty McNair, whether you're retaining Doug Christie, whether you believe that the roster that is in place right now is a roster that you would feel comfortable, at least in most of its parts, competing for another 82 games next season. And I think all of those answers should have already come. Like I hope that whatever they're going to do with the front office doesn't change by whether they win 1 play-in game, win 2 play-in games, or they make it to the playoffs. Now, like, look, if this
What if it
team
was
goes,
the decision you wouldn't make? For example, let's say you're in favor of keeping Monty McNair and they're not right now, but they go in to make it to the Western Conference Finals, and all of a sudden, decisions change.
well, that's what I mean. Like, if somehow you catch lightning in a bottle and you go from, a play-in team to winning 1 play-in game, winning a second play-in game, upsetting the number 1 seed and making it to the second round, I think, oh, look, maybe I would change my mind on what I would consider doing partially this summer with regards to who is coaching the team and who's making those final decisions. Maybe there. This still, like, the mix of players, this is a 40 and 42 team. And I don't think that they've shown anything to tell me that they were better than a 500 team. Just some things happened. That's not where I'm at. And so, like, for me, I don't really like, if Doug Christie's back next year, it's because Doug Christie righted the ship and kept the team on its rails and didn't have a complete collapse and have this thing turned into the 2015 Sacramento Kings with, Michael Malone and Ty Corbin and George Karl all coaching the team in 1 year. So, again, I don't think what Doug will do in the next couple of games will matter when it comes to the evaluation of him. But I would hope that the evaluation of the team doesn't change, because this team is not. It's not it. It's not a winning, and I think that's where you're at, Brennan. I mean, that's where you were kind of leading in the beginning. Like, if this is what you're walking in the next season with, what exactly happened here?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the moves that happened at the deadline were, we need to acquire talent, like specifically the Zach LaVine move, and how that may fit with the rest of the team. I think is something that needs to be worked out this offseason. Like the Jonas and the Jake moves, sure, were complementary things with your roster construction in mind, but I think that they were, in their mind, put in a position where, hey, we have to do this now, and they decided to go for a win now talent in that deal, and it doesn't necessarily mesh. And some of that has to do with the decisions you made last offseason as well. Like, I think the DeRozan fit was already a little bit questionable, and I think that has become actualized throughout the course of this year. You're gonna have to see how that plays out. Yeah, I mean, I just still think that this is very much a collection of talent rather than a cohesive group where you're optimizing everybody that you have on the roster.
I agree with that. Sean?
I do too. No, I think that's well said. And I think, it's, I don't think the one thing, look, I mean, I know determinations have to be made and there's decisions, but the one thing you haven't been able to see, despite what the regular season has shown you, is how this team plays in a series, how this team can play in a do or die situation, and how they play with their backs against the wall. And when you make these decisions for your future, you kind of want to see what that looks like. I'm with you though. For the most part, I'm with you guys in terms of, looking at this team and saying, no, there's vast changes that have to be made. This team needs to look more like a team going forward, but I think enjoy the moment right now, because as we've seen, look, I'm not saying this team is capable of doing that, but we've seen crazy things come out of the play-in tournament. We've seen a play-in tournament go to the NBA Finals. So play-in tournament's not that old. And this is a very, very talented team. So I'm not expecting to see anything we haven't seen yet from this team. I think I kind of alluded to that already, but one thing you haven't seen is this team fight for its life. And that's, I think, a little intriguing.
All right, let's take a second here. We're, of course, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy Sports. If you haven't already, download the app. Use the promo code KINGSBEAT, KINGSBEAT, all one word, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free play. Look, playoff basketball, I think, is really cool, specifically when it comes to doing daily fantasy sports. It gives you an opportunity to kind of see a matchup workout or not workout, and see how it morphs throughout a playoff series. So I think it should be really cool to actually, maybe look at a couple of things that you wouldn't normally look at in a playoff series, and kind of go along, choosing higher or lower as you go through the series. Also, I think mixing that with baseball's been a ton of fun to use daily fantasy sports with so far. I just think it adds another element. My guy Kyle loves to choose whether pitchers are going to give up a first inning run or not. So lots of cool stuff to look at. Give it a look if you want, and if it's not for you, we're not pushing you one way or another. It's just, if you are gonna look at daily fantasy sports, Underdog is one of the best that's out there, and we fully appreciate them.
Did you get in on the golf on the Masters?
No, I did not.
Oh, you should have. I saw all kinds of activity. That looked very fun.
Yeah, I think that would have been fun too. I didn't even think about it. I think you could have done some people chose 3 players, to in a somewhat of a parlay type deal. I don't know. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. I know there was somebody who, not using daily fantasy sports, was actually making some sort of wager, and then backed off of that wager right before the Masters final, which cost him a lot of money. Sorry
I know
about
a
that.
lot of people that did.
Yeah.
They know a lot about golf, so it's okay.
Shots fired. Shots fired, Sean. Okay, you must be 18 or over and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text next step to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to or just text HOPE-NY. There we go.
Nice job, man. Now
Got
you need
that
to go a little
quickly.
quicker though. He
Great
had
work.
it. Yeah.
Great work.
I would love to tell you that I could talk quicker, but not
We'll
right
speed it
now.
up in post-production, you know?
Yeah, I've been using I'm straightening my front teeth, and so talking fast right now is not super easy for me because I've been wearing mouthpieces for the last I don't know, it's almost been a week.
They're in right now.
Sore teeth. No, I pulled them out to do the podcast because I just talked on the radio for another hour after talking on the radio for 2 hours earlier. Lots of radio conversations.
You got to keep those things in though, right?
I do, but I got to wear them 22 hours a day. I think I can. Hopefully, you don't drag this out to a 2-hour podcast and waste the 2 hours of freedom I have in my life. Sean
Pop them
Cunningham.
right on in. Just pop them right on in and keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. I can't actually just pop them right in. Okay, so I don't know what our expectations are for the next couple of days, but do you guys see a pathway through to the playoffs for this team? And what would the easiest pathway be?
Definitely
Yeah.
see a path. I mean, I think that Dallas is the easiest matchup that you could possibly get, really. Sure, I guess if we're going to talk Phoenix or Portland could have got in, but I think that part of the complication is that they're a tough evaluation, they being the Mavericks, with, you know, how much their roster has changed. Looking back, the Kings went 3-0 against the Mavs this year, but Mike Brown wasn't coach for any of those. De'Aaron Fox played in one of those games. Luka didn't play in any of them. Anthony Davis has not played in any of those games. It's extremely tough to try and evaluate, and I don't know how much stock you can put into those previous games. So I think that they have a good chance because of how much change that Dallas has gone through. AD also didn't look like he's moving the greatest as of late. You got to kind of question sort of just how he's feeling coming into this matchup, with him obviously being the biggest X factor. But if he's not healthy, then the Kings should have the best player on the floor, or if he's not at 100%, which I think is key in a lot of this. And I think pretty easily you want to play Memphis in that second round if you're the Kings rather than the Warriors. Memphis also had a coaching change as well pretty late in their year. They started okay after letting go of Taylor Jenkins, but then have kind of slowed down since. I think they're easily who you would rather play between them and the Warriors. As you know, the Warriors will see what Jimmy's health is like going into that game as well, suffering a little bit of, what was it, a hamstring? I'm forgetting exactly what it was in that playing game. I think that's right. And so we'll see where that's at. But I think that you would easily rather deal with Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson than Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and this team that you've had many battles with over the years.
Sean?
Yeah, I mean, the pathway absolutely is there. I mean, obviously it's going to go right to the Thunder, but to be honest, I kind of like the Kings' chances against in a one game scenario. I like their chances against the Grizzlies or the Warriors. To be honest, I don't care which one it is. And look, I probably wouldn't pick the Kings over the Warriors. The Grizzlies game, if it came to that, I honestly don't think there's a preferable matchup. If I'm being honest, like, certainly I don't like the Kings having to travel all the way to Memphis for a one-off. I think the Kings travel better, especially the crowd travels better to Golden State in San Francisco. So and they have so much familiarity there, and familiarity, I think, especially in a winner take all scenario, can go a long way. I mean, you know, think of guys like Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis, and you know, guys like Domantas Sabonis, guys who have this history against the Warriors. And I think there's something to be said there. So I think that would be a fun matchup. The Grizzlies scare me a little bit because I think there's a lot of unknown right there, especially since the coaching change. But man, I in a one game series though, in a one game winner take all, how can you not like their chances against really anybody?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at the two series, like, first of all, the Kings are 2-2 against the Warriors on the season, but I think they've only played them once since the Jimmy Butler trade. The Kings are 2-1 against Memphis, but again, I think players were missing from both teams and most of those matchups. Um, I've talked to a couple of people, and they said that since the coaching change, Memphis spent the whole first half of the season running this crazy frenetic offense that was all kinds of movement and motion and like
No
a lot of
screens.
no screens. And a lot of teams around the league were like, what exactly is happening here? And they got lulled into like falling asleep a little bit on a very high scoring team, but a high scoring team that doesn't play any defense. Since the coaching change 9 games ago, we've seen a massive shift to where it's nothing but pick and roll and pick and pop. And they're very predictable. And on top of that, they're not good defensively at all. So you got a team that's been running like frenetic pace all season long, and all of a sudden they're just different and like gone back to the basics a little bit. And like I don't think a lot of people fear them nearly as much as their record. And that's why they're in the play-in tournament and not as a 2, 3, or 4 seed where they were like a couple of weeks ago. So I'm at least intrigued. I also see a pathway. Um, I think the Warriors are a little tougher than the Grizzlies, especially right now. But I also think the Warriors they're just a weird collection of players too.
Well, they're
And
the ones that are going to have all the pressure, guys. I mean, it was a year ago that the Kings sent the Warriors into the offseason because of the play-in tournament, right? So the Warriors go out and get Jimmy Butler. They still have their collection of people. Draymond Green says they're making the NBA Finals or the conference finals. I don't remember which, but they've played like a team that's worthy of that. And just a quick couple of hiccups, and here they are, centered into the play-in tournament. So I feel if there's any team that's playing with something to lose, it's those folks in the Bay.
I think one of the
yeah,
other interesting aspects of that with the Kings knocking the Warriors out last year is everybody will remember Klay Thompson went 0 of 10. Klay Thompson, now a Maverick, gets a chance
Yeah.
to redeem himself in Golden One Center. And,
Yeah.
that could go one of two ways, but I'm sure that he's going to be a little hyped for that one.
he wasn't great the year before either.
Mm-hmm.
He ain't going 0 of 10, I'll tell you that.
I wouldn't
No.
think so.
No.
They're going to need
probably
him.
not. Yeah, I mean, I think the Dallas matchup is going to be at least entertaining. We had this whole weird streak where Domantas Sabonis had gone like 10-0 or 11-0 to start his career against Anthony Davis, and then got busted up a couple of times early this season when Davis was on the Lakers. I'm kind of intrigued to see how the Kings handle that. Like, what does AD look like? What does he look like with a couple of rim running centers that continuously get injured? But also, what do those centers look like without Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving setting them up? And are they nearly as effective? So I think there are a lot. Like Dallas has a lot of questions just as a franchise. Like what direction are they going, and how do they piece this thing together? So that's the team that you kind of want to play. They have not been good over the last month. But neither of the Kings. The Kings have been, hit and miss almost every step of the way. I think the Kings are 10-14 in their last 24, something like that.
Sounds
Not
about
great.
right.
Sounds right.
They it's two teams without a point guard. So we'll see. I'm kind of thinking that turnovers will play a big part in this. Like I think it's typical things that already factor into the Kings' success. Again, you could go faceless opponent, like turnovers and playing with pace and defensive rebounding. I think are three huge things in this game. And again, you could say that any night going into a Kings game, but I think it even more so is the case when you're facing a Dallas team that goes double bigs, trying to run them off the floor a little bit. Obviously, the way that they impact the glass with all the bigs that they're going to have out there as well plays a factor. Keegan Murray, if Anthony Davis is the one guarding Keegan Murray, then make him run through screens. It almost throws me back to the Pelicans matchup, which obviously didn't go in the Kings' favor, but you have Zion on Keegan. It's like, all right, make this guy run through screens. And so I think that that's a way that you can sort of play into the Kings' favor here. Again, things that are typical to their success in general, I think are going to be even more crucial in this matchup.
Okay. Malik Monk is out for at least the next week and a half or so. Jake LaRavia We talked to him in the locker room yesterday, and he sure didn't sound like he was going to be cleared to play anytime soon. And I think that both of those players are a pretty big deal for the Kings. Jake LaRavia, for people who don't know, his injury was upgraded from like, I don't know, like a bone bruise inside his thumb to I think it's called a scaphoid fracture, which is the bone that's way down here at the base of the thumb and sort of right at the where the wrist and the thumb come in together. And I think it is. I don't think it's like a pain management thing. It's an injury that usually is like 4 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks to heal up 100%. Whether he plays or not, I don't know. Like if the Kings were to make the game on Friday or were to make the first round of the playoffs, I think we'll have to wait and see. But I'd also add that Jake LaRavia is a free agent at the end of the season, an unrestricted free agent. And while he would like to show up and have a big game in a playoff, he also needs to do what's right by him and make sure that he doesn't have something that could get worse by playing. What's the biggest?
Well, especially the way he plays. I mean, that guy is a deer on roller skates and all over the floor. It's not like he's just coming out there catching and shooting. So, yeah, the way he plays basketball, he can't play.
Yeah, and it is his left hand. It's his non-shooting hand.
That doesn't matter either. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it matters either. Yeah, he does play at just like a wild pace and flying all over the court. How much do you think they miss those two?
I would say
Ton.
Malik more than Jake, obviously. A guy that, a starter at times, or even when he's coming off the bench, he's likely closing games out there. And I mean, talked about the pace earlier. Malik really plays into that well, obviously, being able to get the ball quickly after a board and push it himself. And I think the turnover thing, there's moments where I've wondered if they play better without Malik, to be honest. But I think that having the talent out there is obviously what you want, and the cohesiveness. You never know whose game it's going to be. When it like single elimination basketball, it could be anybody really that just has a stellar game. I mean, you could think back to random Game 7 heroes of a Grant Williams making a stupid amount of threes against the Bucks, and like that's a Game 7 of a playoff series, but that's essentially what we're talking about here. This has the feel of a Game 7, and it could be anybody. And Malik has that potential to just totally take over a game or dominate a quarter. So obviously that's a guy that you very much want out there. And I think that Jake, especially against Dallas, more than anything, you'd want that size. Like you've seen the Jokic matchup earlier in the year. Well, they'll put Keegan on Jokic and then have the big sort of roam, or then you go to the bench unit and like Jake LaRavia was guarding Nikola Jokic for a little while. And I think that if he was out there, this is a matchup where maybe you do have 2 5-minute stretches where Jake LaRavia is out there and you're asking him to try to slow down Anthony Davis and being a little bit physical. So I think there definitely would help, obviously, being out there, but you're going to have to make do. It's a little more Devin Carter, and you're relying more heavily on Keegan Murray throughout this process. So you got to have this next man up mentality, obviously, but they're certainly going to miss those guys out there.
Sean?
Yeah, to me, it comes down to Monk. I think I was curious to seeing what Malik would be in this playoff series or even a play-in tournament, because he got robbed of this last year because of the injury. And that injury came against Dallas. Granted, it was Luka Doncic who hurt him, but it was Dallas still that he was playing when he suffered that injury. And now here they are hosting the Mavericks in the play-in tournament. And not having him, I think he knows wholeheartedly that he hasn't been great over these past really greater part of a month, where they're trying to figure things out and try to survive without a point guard, and him being now pulled into the bench role. However it is, a long enough sample size, the turnovers being what they are, I think you're still going to miss Malik. And I think he's had some decent games at various parts before the injury. I think he was close to hopefully figuring things out a bit, but just having his confidence, because I think it's so infectious that I say it all the time. He is their identity. He is what makes them go. And not having that, you talk to every player. You don't even have to ask them about Malik. They're already talking about how much they miss Malik. So seeing him still influence the game and influence the team from the bench is a very amusing thing. You see how much he's talking to people and how much he's involved in the team huddles and conversations. It's rare when you see him just kind of standing there off to his off with like Jay Crowder or something, and they're just kind of, you know, BS. And I mean, he is constantly in the huddle at all times. So trying to impact the game however he can, even from a bench standpoint. And I mean, he wholeheartedly wants to play in these playoffs. So in order for him to touch the court, they're going to have to at least advance at minimum from this game. But I think they'll have to get into the playoffs. I don't even think he'll be available for a second play-in game.
Yeah, I would be very cautious with the calf injury, especially just knowing how valuable he is and how important the calf muscle is to supporting the Achilles tendon and all that stuff. So, what do you guys think are the keys? The keys to the Kings winning this first game against Dallas?
Well, for me, I think it starts wholeheartedly with pace. I mean, they have to run this team because I don't think Dallas has any interest in trying to have a track meet with this team. And it's funny because the Kings are, I think they are kind of built to be able to run in the half court as well, but they have to keep the track shoes on. And I think that's going to be paramount. And honestly, they're going to try to be very, very physical. I think, you know, someone like Sabonis and Valanciunas are going to be absolutely critical for their success. The way they try to get after you and try to rough you up, and you know, they'll try to get both those guys into foul trouble. But to me, it's pace and it's that physicality from the bigs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely it. I said it a little bit earlier. I think that pace and I think that rebounding very much goes into that. Obviously, getting turnovers is the best way to get out in transition, but you have to be able to get defensive rebounds as well. And the Kings finished the season second in defensive rebound rate, below the LA Clippers. Domas leads the league in defensive rebounds. You've seen Keegan become a much better rebounder. I think that Keegan's rebounding is a very key part in all this. Obviously, with Dallas going a little bit bigger, I think he's going to have a big responsibility, but they kind of all mentioned it today. Like Zach, the quote was, quote, "You don't want to get into a half court battle with them, especially in the half court defense. The easier we can make our lives with getting out and getting easy baskets, we'll take that all day." And Keegan had a similar message saying, if we can get the defensive rebound and push the ball in transition, I think we'll have a good chance of winning and scoring easy baskets that way, because when they're set up, their half court defense, they're tough. I think that says it pretty well. And I think that, again, turnovers are the other aspect that I would point to. I think the Kings struggle with that aspect at times, and how that could affect them winning the possession game. They're not the greatest transition defense. I think that's one aspect that they've slowed down a little bit ever since some of the moves of reworking this roster a little bit. So definitely playing with pace against this team. Again, something that I think is important to the Kings' success, no matter who their opponent is, but even more so against Dallas.
Yeah, I think pace is big. I also think just the ball movement. The ball movement has to be there. This team, when the ball is hopping, it just builds confidence with them. And when it's not, it really strips away who they are, and everyone stands around, and it becomes a really, really like one-dimensional, easy offense to defend. And so I'm hoping that they have a little bit of that activity that we've seen in some of their better wins, but I just don't know. You know, from one game to the next, we really don't know what you're getting outside of penciling Domas in for a double-double, and, you know, maybe even DeMar DeRozan in for 20 points. I don't know that we know what we're getting from any one of the other players, and so it makes it really difficult. I do think that, like, this is a game that if you're the Kings, you should come in with some confidence. You're playing at home. You got a team that has not been good. Um, you're playing okay. You're playing better basketball than you were maybe 2 weeks ago. And so I think the opportunity is here for them to, you know, get through this game relatively simple and easy, and move on to face whoever's going to win the 7-8 matchup, which is tomorrow night, right? So,
Yes, tomorrow night is the 7-8 matchup, Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies.
yeah. And then if the game's on Friday, right? Like whoever wins, the winner of the 9-10 will play the loser of the 7-8 on Friday, and that will be on the road for the Kings no matter what. Just like the first game of the first round, which I think starts on Sunday or Monday for them, would be on the road as well. So if somehow the Kings survive, they would play in OKC on it's either again Sunday or Monday. All
And
right.
by the way, that would be the East and the West both play on that Friday to see who wins the 8th seed in both the East and the West play-in tournament. The West will continue to be on ESPN, and the East will be on TNT.
Okay, so does the playoffs officially start on Saturday?
I believe yes, because that would be you've got a bunch of the 5-4 matchups and 6-3 matchups.
Oh, okay, the 4, 5, 6,
for both
3.
East and West. Yeah.
Is there anything that happened in the last week of the season that surprised you guys, Kings related or not, when it comes to like how this all? I mean, of course, the Michael Malone firing I think shocked all of us. But just looking at the final standings where, in the West, you got OKC followed by Houston, followed by the Lakers, Denver. You got Denver matched up with the Clippers in the first round, both of them at 50 and 32. You got Minnesota as a 6 seed who avoided the play-in tournament. And then, of course, the Warriors, the Grizzlies, the Kings, and the Mavs, followed by, the Phoenix Suns and Portland Trailblazers both finished at 36 and 46.
Yeah.
Horrible.
I think. Go ahead.
I'd say probably. I mean, the Clippers winning 8 straight definitely stands out. Like Kawhi Leonard looks healthy, and when that team, James Harden had a phenomenal postseason game. I guess it's technically postseason, not playoffs, and he gets a lot of criticism for his playoff performances, understandably so. But he scored 10 of their 11 or something along those lines in OT yesterday, in a huge game to end up clinching that 5th seed. I think that they're rolling really well, and then on the East side, I guess directly correlating to the Kings, Chicago, I would say has kind of been surprising to me. Josh Giddey's playing really well. Former King Kevin Huerter in a little bit of a rhythm there, but really it's Josh Giddey and Kobe White that I think are kind of rolling over there. I don't know that I expect them to beat the Magic necessarily in that first round, but they definitely had an impressive end to their season. And I think it's a, interesting parallel considering they traded away the player that the Kings elected to trade for. And while the East is certainly not as competitive as the Western Conference, just kind of showing that you can retool and get a little bit younger and also still remain all right in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say the thing that surprised me was I didn't really care about who was going to fall into the 7. Be again, among the Clippers, T-Wolves, and Warriors. I think what surprised me most is if you look at just the way their last 10 games went for all 3 of those teams. I mean, Brenden mentioned the 8 straight, but Clippers won 9 of 10. T-Wolves had won 8 of 10, and the Warriors were 7 of 10. So it all kind of like just the way it finished, all kind of structured out. Clippers get the 5, T-Wolves get the 6, and the Warriors fall to 7. I'd also think, I think a little bit of a surprise, and this has to do probably with the Malik injury more than anything, but welcoming back Terrence Davis, I think, is a little interesting. Right before we were talking about the last final week of the season, he was somebody who was on the floor in game 6 and 7s against the Warriors 2 years ago. So, he's had a nice stint in G League. He's got an Achilles injury behind him, and he hasn't really played. He played in some kind of garbage time in the season finale against Phoenix, but not sure what he'll look like if he gets onto the court for any of these play-in tournament games, should they advance.
Yeah, I actually
plays, right?
No, there
What's
is
that?
a way he plays.
Really?
Yeah.
I think there's a way he plays too. Yeah.
Yeah, if Doug is grasping at straws, I think there is a way he plays.
Especially, let's paint you a scenario. You get foul trouble. Maybe Devin Carter doesn't have it. Looks every bit of a rookie out there, and you go with someone who has a little bit more experience. That's my pathway.
Yeah, yeah. And the way I see it too, I almost wonder, the Kings have had open roster spots for months. Like, why didn't you bring in Terrence Davis before? Because, like, I think one of the problems that made the move of Malik Monk to the starting lineup, what made it untenable, was the fact that you lost Malik Monk's power off the bench. And Terrence Davis is that type of player. He brings that type of energy. It's inconsistent for sure, but I still think that would have been a move that would have made sense to give you some sort of pop off the bench, because the Kings, one of the biggest problems they had is once they moved Monk into the starting lineup, of course, they had nobody scoring consistently off the bench, which has been like one of the downfalls of their season. So I'm intrigued to see. I mean, I'm not like saying mark it down. Terrence Davis is going to play, but I would not be shocked just because we've seen Doug McDermott get some minutes here and there. We've seen Markelle Fultz get a look, which hasn't been that impressive, and of course Devin Carter, who as a rookie is just totally hit and miss. Okay. I think we all kind of are on the same page. The Kings, we're not quite sure what they're going to look like on Wednesday night when they face the Dallas Mavericks. We have no idea if they'll be able to advance because we just don't know which team is going to show up and which team is not. That's been sort of the hallmark of this Sacramento Kings season from start to finish. Let's see. Do we have anything else we need to discuss?
The Stockton Kings are playing
of
in the
course.
finals against the Osceola. I believe I'm saying that correctly.
Osceola.
I got educated. Osceola. Thank you. I did not get educated. Now I'm getting educated. Against the Osceola Magic and playing game 3, final game. It's a 3-game series today. Actually, right now at the time of recording, going to swap that over here right when we finish up. I think Mason Jones has been absolutely balling out and sort of changing my perspective a little bit on him as a player. Admittedly, the playmaking has popped. He had 12 assists last game. He's getting doubled from the jump. Jalen Slauson on the other team over there, a little bit of a familiar face there as well. He's doing his John Morant Kincaid celebrations after May 3s out there. Still just as fiery as Kings fans may remember. But yeah, shout out to Stockton. I think that they sold out Stockton Arena. It was a great environment there. Was that Sunday, Saturday? I'm totally forgetting. Maybe even Friday, whenever
Saturday.
that was. Thank you. Friday, one of the two.
Friday.
It happened. Happened. Whenever game 2 was, it was a great atmosphere out there, and it was a blast. And I think those guys are playing really well. So haven't seen quite as much promo as I think is maybe deserved. Well,
what do you mean?
League how you will, but I just don't feel like very many people are aware that this is even like happening. Maybe that's just me, but I don't feel like I've seen it talked about very much. And it's the G League finals. So I'm kind of curious, but they're playing well. I think that Mason Jones has a decent chance to get finals MVP here. They flew Isaac Jones out there, who's participating in this game. Isaiah Crawford, a little more quiet last game, but Scal's playing well. Terry Taylor is trying to redefine himself throughout the course of this season. And as this comes to a close here, so I would say check out, well, I guess it's already completed by the time you're hearing this, but see what happened with Stockton. Maybe they won a championship. The Kings finals champions, potentially.
Yeah, they're fun, man. And shout out to Mason Jones. Mason Jones has been spectacular for them all season. So yeah, he's been fun to watch.
He might have a chance at like league MVP.
Yeah, he's not eligible to play in the postseason because he's a 2-way contract and 2-ways aren't allowed. But Isaac Jones is. So I think. Go ahead.
He just caught a flight to get to Osceola to go play in that game. So he'll be in uniform and putting up numbers for Stockton. Also, I mean, if you didn't get a chance to see it, I'm not trying to shameful promote here, but like I just think it's such a cool story. I don't know if I mentioned it in the last podcast or not, but like Mason Jones has also this season been working at his like MBA through Harvard Business School. And
oh, wow.
That's incredible. Like considering he's an NBA 2-way player, he's taking online courses for Harvard Business School. Just incredible to have this type of season, deal with the challenge that he has. And all he has left now to get his master's is basically a few in-person classes, and he'll have that behind him before the time he starts next season, wherever that might be.
That's awesome. Yeah, and cool. He's not eligible for a 2-way contract next season. So if he's back in Sacramento, it would have to be on the main roster. Again, big shout out to Mason Jones. He's done a really good job of leading that team. Okay, let's get to final thoughts. Let's wrap this thing up. What do we got on final thoughts? We'll start with you, Sean.
With me. Well, what a day has it been? I think it was just fun to watch the Masters end. I mean, the Kings season had just ended in the regular season, and here we are in the locker room watching how the Masters came to a thrilling end. No real local tie, but it was really cool to see Rory McIlroy. I guess the local tie was taking down Bryson DeChambeau kind of tumbled down the leaderboard a little bit, and he was, born in Modesto and learned golf in Modesto before growing up in Clovis. But to see Rory McIlroy kind of get the career Grand Slam, not a lot of guys are able to do that and win every major. So that was cool. And just to kind of look in the locker room and see so many guys paying attention to it, even all the while, you've got the Warriors and Clippers going to overtime, and they eventually had to switch over to that to kind of see how that went in. But it was just cool to see the laid back atmosphere and just seeing some NBA players, most of whom don't even like golf or, pay attention to golf. There are some serious golfers on the team like Malik and Zach LaVine, but yeah, it was just a kind of a cool moment. So that's my final thought.
Yeah, I would say I've been enjoying some baseball. Giants are rolling right now. That's a good time. I'm talking some shit to Frankie, Yankees fan over there during the game recently. Jung-Hoo Lee hitting a couple bombs in that one. That was a blast. Shout out to the short porch out there in Yankee Stadium. But A's games also pretty fun, I would say, and get out there if you have a chance.
When you stick around.
Listen, Sean. Never mind. We don't need to, whatever. I was off, okay, and I just showed up to enjoy my half day, and then I have dinner with family, and Sean is judging the crap out of me for leaving a little bit early.
He left in the fourth inning.
And I don't think the A's scored another run after I left.
I don't think they did.
I saw all I needed.
Blame Brenden.
Just saying. But it's been a good time out there for the most part. I will say Severino's comments have been cracking me up because that man has no shame in essentially saying, he kind of just took the money. He signed the biggest contract in franchise history, and then he's over there telling the New York media that, I wanted to go back to the Mets for $240. They just wouldn't quite get there. So Sevy's been kind of cracking me up a little bit, but it's been fun covering the A's, and I'm leaning into baseball season a little bit.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how that park plays as we get deeper into the season, because right now it's playing a little hot, like the ball's flying out.
A little.
And
we got to we got to the fourth inning, and it was the first time we'd gotten that far into a game where there hadn't been a run scored. Fourth. It was 0-0 in the fourth inning against the Mets on Saturday. Pretty.
I think they won that game. Right?
And you look at it like you had Tyler Soderstrom and you had Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, born in Sacramento, grows up in Linden. Tyler Soderstrom is from Turlock. So at one point last week, you had Soderstrom and Aaron Judge leading Major League Baseball in home runs. That's insane. 2 kids from the 209.
That is
I'm also
crazy.
a big Jacob Wilson guy, by the way. I don't think I'm alone out of us three.
But he's great.
He's a baller, man. Both ends.
Yeah, his hit rate is crazy. Like, his contact rate is wild. Like, that dude, it's getting a strike by him is really, really difficult. He moves around way too much at the plate. He looks like Carney Lansford up there, but at least, not only is he great at hitting right now, but he's also just been a highlight reel at shortstop. So let me see. Final thoughts. I don't know. This has been one of those seasons, like 5 seasons in one, it feels like, right? And I think all of us are ready for a break, although Sean's going to start a new job, and so that probably won't equate to a break. Are you going to take any days off between?
What do you mean, between what?
Between your 2 jobs.
Oh, from putting down one and going to the other. Yeah. I'll have. Plus, I'll have Bottle Rock at the end of May, so I'm definitely going there. So that gives me a few days. So
what are the highlights out there
for Bottle Rock?
Yeah.
Napa at the end of May, for one, just vibes in general. But you've got what are the headliners? You got Green Day, you got Ice Cube, you got Justin Timberlake, Benson Boone, Noah Khan. Good times, man.
I will say the most Sean thing ever happened earlier this week. We went out and got a couple drinks, and this man walked into the bar. It's like 12:30, and on his phone, I'm like, "What are you watching right now?" And packed, loud bar. This man is watching Lady Gaga at Coachella on his phone, and I just thought it was the most Sean Cunningham thing I've ever seen.
Showing up late is what he meant, not the Coachella thing. The Coachella thing is just extra. Sean being late is the most Sean thing ever.
Well, I was there. I showed up. First of all, I had to make a stop elsewhere where we were watching. A lot of us were watching Gaga, and it just kind of carried over. But for me, the next day, watching Coachella, couch from the couch, Couchella is what I wanted to say.
Oh,
so got to see Green Day from the couch. That was great.
Awesome. All right.
By the way, your guy Nick Kurtz, is that his name from AAA?
Yeah,
I say your guy. He's he's going to be here like any minute in Sacramento.
Oh, he's ripping the cover off the ball. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just looked. He's batting, I think, 368, 7 home runs, 22 RBI, and 60 at bats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
but where do you
one
put
more.
him?
Right.
Well, you put him in the
Soderstrom's
out.
gone.
DH. You DH him. Put Rooker in the outfield.
Or you make a young kid go play left field and make Rooker go sit back on and leave him in DH. One or the
You figure it
other.
out. You figure
Either
it out.
that or see if Soderstrom can play third. That's where
By the way,
would
I did see the new movie Sacramento that was filmed in Sacramento, a good portion of it. The one with Michael Cera, who is a very obnoxious character in that movie. But that's the only spoiler I'll give you.
Okay. It was good?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen very
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think I've seen some very mixed reviews on it. So if I just kind of give it like a 2.5 stars out of 4, I guess. Yeah, it's fine.
Out of 4? Who does out of 4 stars?
Well, 4. What do you mean? Well, you
Yeah,
don't
out
go
of
higher than
5?
4 stars. 5?
Yeah.
Sean's
Why is
making
your
his
rating
own
out of 4?
slide scale.
Okay, well, if it's out of 5, then let's go.
I mean, if it's who does out of 4?
3.2 out of 5. Is that where we're going?
Yeah. I think it's like a 6 out of 8, you know. You're a maniac.
Well, okay, so the Bee used to have a movie critic named by the name of Joe Baltake, and he would do, this is way back when I was in like grade school, like elementary school, but it would out of 4 stars. Him and I think Dixie Reed was the other person that would do music and movies, but they would do out of 4 stars. I don't even think they did 5 stars. But yes, now I see many more 5-star reviews. So I don't know.
All right.
But I'm just saying, you might like it. I went with 2 people. One said they hated it. I said I kind of liked it. Another person said it was 7 out of 10, that's a C, right?
Let's say that's a normal rating out of 10.
Out of 10?
Yeah. Out of 10 and 5.
I'm trying to
I
look
gotta make
up
sure. Go ahead.
what it's getting on all right. On Metacritic, it's getting a 69.
Nice.
That's not bad.
Stop.
I expected that from you, Brenden.
Yeah. Is that good? I can't remember how the Rotten
Yeah,
Tomatoes.
yeah.
It is
Rotten
good.
Tomatoes is usually way easier, so it's probably a 75 on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, maybe I'll go see it, Sean.
I had to tell some people who were new to Sacramento and they're getting used to, and they they wanted to see it. Like, oh, it didn't really look like they showed a lot of Sacramento. I go, no, they did. They showed a lot. I was like, if you want to see more of Sacramento, you could probably watch Lady Bird. And they're like, oh, Lady Bird was shot here. I'm like, yes, the whole movie. It's like a love letter to Sacramento.
Or just follow Sean's Twitter feed. You can see all of Sacramento because he's at every event, everywhere, all the time. And there it is.
I stay out.
All right. We're going to wrap this thing up. Thanks for tuning into the Kings Beat podcast. We're, of course, a Blue Wire podcast brought to you by Underdog Fantasy Sports. We're going to try to do another podcast later this week.
What?
If the Kings get bounced, maybe we'll look at Thursday.
Wait, what if they win?
If the Kings make it to Friday, we'll do something on Saturday. We'll try to get a second podcast in this week. And then we're going to be here all summer long figuring out what happens next because I think there are a lot of question marks that have to be answered one way or another. So thanks for tuning in. If you're still watching, if you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, rating and review anywhere else that you're listening to podcasts. That would be great. And actually, I think I actually made new sweatshirts as well, which I'll probably release for the next podcast. New Kings Beat gear. So for Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I am James Hammy, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We'll see you very soon.